I got to quote one of our Facebook followers here real quick. He came up with the perfect solution for it. We need to use it to store Rodney Ellis's art collection.
Ooh.
There you go. It's a stolen art collection.
Damn, I wish you would have said that while we was on.
I wanted to jump back in there, but Greg asked if anybody had anything and then went on, so didn't get to it.
I surely would have said that.
Did you hear that, Greg?
No.
One of you're muted. One of our Facebook, Bob Choate, said that we should use the Astrodome to store Rodney Ellis's art collection.
Stolen art collection.
That's it.
Bob is hysterical.
Hey, you guys. I'm going to defer to the ladies today. Tomaro Bell has been wanting to talk more in depth about the crime that's going on in the city of Houston. Y'all want to start right there? Go ahead, Tomaro.
Sure.
Okay, tomorrow we're having our Super Neighborhood Alliance meeting, and that's all the super neighborhoods for the whole city that are active, and it's over 56 of them. It represents 1.8 million people, and we're doing a commission on public safety, because I don't care where you live. This is happening everywhere. There's no protected regions like there used to be. Even the ones who are paying for Navy SEALs to protect their community, it is happening everywhere. And if we don't get this, I've said it before, we will be below Detroit. And on this show, we have educated the community about where we are compared to other cities with crime. Because if you ask most of the people that live in this city, they're going to say, oh, Chicago's worse. That's a lie. We are above Chicago's murder rate. Now, we are above growing crime more than New York, LA, and Chicago. We have got to do something about this. And I mean that, you know, we brag about all the people moving to Texas. That's true. They are moving to Texas, but they ain't moving to Harris County, and they're not moving to Houston. So if we don't get this underhand, and I'm telling you, bullets don't know race. Bullets don't know, bullets don't have names on them. This is affecting everybody, but it is truly, truly putting a nail in the coffin in the minority community. And it all goes back to, it's not just HPD. So I mean, it's not, and I mean, I hope and I pray, because I only have so many blood pressure pills, that don't nobody come to me with that dumbass, stupid ass defund the police crap. Because who the hell you gonna call? You talk about defund the police. Who the hell you calling? Ghostbusters? Okay, you nobody else to call. We don't have private security in my neighborhood. So we've got to do something. And it's the police plus it's the punishment. And when public safety is third, you got a problem. Okay? When the prisoners are safer than the public, you have a problem. So we have got to do something, and we've got to do it together, and we can get this done. We can get this done. We've got to get this under control.
Hey, look, money talks, BS walks. Bill King has said it today and said it publicly before. He's not investing a penny in Houston. Do you think there are more people like him if we don't turn this around?
It's not just Houston, it's major cities all across this country. And you look at Portland, where shootings are up 120% over last year. It's a condition in this country where lawlessness is just being not only allowed to prevail, but encouraged to prevail. And it's a very dangerous time for our country. And Houston is certainly, unfortunately, leading the way in this. And it's time for law enforcement to be allowed to do its job and enforce the law in an equitable and fair manner and protect the communities that need protecting the most. When you look at where a lot of these crimes are going on, it's directly impacting the minority communities. And those are the people that when cities like Austin are trying to defund the police, they're going, no, we need the police to come in here. We need the police to protect us and do their jobs. They need to do them right. And they need to do them equitably, and they need more training. I'm having trouble with my tongue this morning for some reason, but let's encourage law enforcement to do that. And let's get a social pressure that says it's not okay to walk down 6th Street and start shooting people. It's not okay to just walk up to somebody and punch them in the face because you don't like that he's wearing a red hat. All of these things are going on across the country. It's time for people to go back to respecting each other and scale back this violent outrage that's been going on.
So, but what's been scaled back is law enforcement, because law enforcement has been beat up. I mean, they've had the crap beat out of them because of a few bad apples. And what's interesting, and this goes back to the media, Janice, the coverage of the mainstream media in this country, every police shooting involving an African American is big news, whether it was righteous or not. But the hundreds of people getting shot in Houston, the hundreds of people getting killed that have been killed in Chicago and the other major cities is not a big story. We don't hear anybody condemning it. We don't hear anyone saying there is a problem in some communities with law and order and we need to take care of it. No one is, Tomaro Bell talks about it, but nobody's talking about it. Now, why is that? Because I actually think there are forces in this country that are interested in tearing the country down. I really do. And they believe that opening the borders helps, and they believe that letting all the criminals out of the jail helps. They're going to destroy America because remember, there are some in this country that have been taught by the woke that America's founding was horrible, that this is really a really bad country. You know, we're not perfect, but we're the best country in the world. So, and we should strive to do better. But denigrating this country has not helped. And so, yeah, in Houston, here's the problem in Houston. We are grossly under-policed. We don't have enough police. Our per capita police are a joke. You know, when you sit at home at night on the weekends and you hear on the freeway, from us, we live a mile from the freeway, you hear cars racing down 610. Well, that's because there are no police. They're not out there. The number of police during the graveyard shift would shock you. That and the revolving door in the courthouse. And then you add to the fact that the district attorney's office is grossly underfunded. And this all goes to the feet of politicians. So when I tell you that the 3 Democratic commissioners in Harris County are a clear and present danger to public safety and to our future, it is absolutely true. Not because they're Democrats, because there are a lot of good Democrats out there that would support law and order and also support other issues that we need. But these people, they have an agenda. And their agenda is going to destroy this community, as Greg correctly pointed out, and Bill pointed out, people aren't investing here. They don't want to come here. Austin's booming. San Antonio's booming. Dallas is booming. We're not. And there's a reason. Flooding and runaway crime. And it starts with political leadership. And so when people vote for these clowns to get into office, we have legitimized what they're doing. And they're destroying our community. And it's got to stop.
Jump in here, King.
Well, I just don't think that elected officials understand that, you know, people vote with their feet too. Last year, Harris County had more people move out of it than moved into it. It's the first time since the 80s that's happened. The city of Houston's population had grown now in 3 years in a row. I think if we get the final numbers for 2020, we're probably going to see that it actually lost population last year. And look, I agree. The crime is a huge issue. And it's one that has a lot of emotional resonance with it. But there's also other issues. I mean, the school district is a disaster. We're not doing, there's no perception that we're doing anything about, flooding in this county. The property taxes are too high. The streets are in terrible condition. I mean, this is a dysfunction of governance across the board. And I'm not making it partisan at all. It's just, this is what's happening. And Bob's right. It's not just Houston, it's big cities across the country. We just have this complete implosion of governance and people are rushing out. Almost every major city in the country right now is losing population. Now, some of that was pandemic driven and there'll be some subsidence in that, but this is actually a long-term trend. I mean, you look, Chicago's lost 1/3 of its population over the last decade. Detroit lost 70% of its population over about 5 decades. I mean, you go and look at, pictures and read stories about Detroit in the 50s. They were calling it the third coast because it was on, the lake up there and everything. And now it's just, I went through there with my boat a couple of times. It's a disaster. It's unbelievable. It's just block after block after block of really nice big houses. I'm sure houses that were enormously expensive at the time are just abandoned and boarded up. It's really sad.
Janice, are you still with us, or did you have to check off?
No, I'm here. I'm not sure I want to lay the crime problem, the current crime problem, at the feet of the Harris County Commissioner's Court or the City of Houston. City of Houston's new budget, in fact, does include increases for the police department and did so last year. I'd be interested, and I think as we go down the road a little ways and socioeconomists start taking a look at this, you might start to see some sort of tie between what's going on and the pandemic. There could be, lots of people were hurting over the last year. Could be ties to increased crime because of that. I'm not sure, but the fact that it's not just one city makes me think that there is something else behind it that's driving it.
All right. Hey, I want to ask Bob Price about his one-on-one conversation with Governor Abbott a little bit more. Any nuance you can give us?
Well, I think the governor is very serious about this issue. Texas has spent more money than any other state in the country in trying to secure the border with Texas. And part of that is because Texas is bearing the brunt of this immigration crisis over the last 2 decades, really. But the majority, like 70% of the people that are crossing the border illegally, are coming into Texas, and that hits Texas taxpayers, and it hits them hard. When you look at the number of schools that are filled with migrant children that are in this country illegally, when you look at the hospitals that are filled with patients that are taking services at taxpayer expenses, all of these things are directly impacting the Texas taxpayer. But also, when you look at, people talk about being compassionate to these migrants. What is happening to these migrants is anything but compassionate. They're packed into the backs of 18-wheelers, stuffed like cardboard or cordwood, I'll get it here in a minute, into vehicles where they've removed all the seats and they lay them in there on top of each other, grossly overweighting the vehicle to where it can't be driven. And then they get in these high-speed pursuits and put the public at risk, crash and kill dozens of people. It's anything but compassionate. The women and children being raped, the men being beaten and robbed. It's one atrocity after another. And that's not just in Mexico and in Central America. That happens in Texas, where when they're packed, we had a situation in Houston recently with 96 people locked in 2 bedrooms of a house. A stash house in Laredo the other day had more than 100 people inside one house. It's very incompassionate. So the governor is taking action. It's not just words anymore. He's starting this week building physical barriers. They might just be fences, but they're going to put up physical barriers that when these people move them or cross over them, they've now committed state crimes. And despite what some other people on the panel have said, they will be held in jails, and they're going to build jails. They're going to build these soft-sided tent facilities like the federal government uses, and put these people in them and hold them. And they're going to, we're coming out of COVID now, so there's going to be less COVID restrictions in the jails. That's going to free up bed space in the jails. The sheriffs that I talked to, like I said, there was more than 100 sheriffs down there at this meeting. I talked to as many of them as I could. They completely support this. They understand that this is a law enforcement issue that needs to be taken. The untold story of this illegal migration is what is happening to the people that live down there. Imagine you're living in a house out in 10 miles from your nearest neighbor, and you've got people marching through your yard in the middle of the night. You get up in the morning, you walk into the barn, and there's like 20 people sleeping inside this thing that you don't know who they are or what they're going to do. People have been attacked. Women have been attacked. And I talked to a female rancher in New Mexico last year who was attacked. And when the Border Patrol came and grabbed the guy, they found out that he had been previously deported for raping a woman. It's a very, very dangerous situation that the governor has taken it seriously. The state legislature has taken it seriously for a long time. And I think you're going to see some real action taken. Unfortunately, let's say we jail these people and they spend 30, 60, 90 days in jail, maybe even a year if they commit a state jail felony. When you release them, they're supposed to be turned over to ICE and deported from the country. but ICE is not going to deport them. ICE is going to let them go, and then they'll move on down the street. So that's a big frustration. And that adds to this national sense of lawlessness that's going on. We don't enforce our laws at the border. We don't enforce our laws with people that commit crimes that have no business being here anyway. And it just perpetuates the problem.
And the cartels are laughing all the way to the bank.
You know,
Oh, yeah, the cartels are making more money smuggling
Come on, guys.
human beings than they are from smuggling drugs.
Or
But-
guns.
okay, I
But
want to
Abbott
ask this
doesn't have any
question.
funding to do this. He has no money. Let's make sure that people understand that. The legislature provided no money to do this.
The legislature
and
provided
they
a
can't legally
billion
do it.
dollars, excuse me, legislature provided $1 billion for border security out of this legislative session. There's also going to be another legislative session where they're going to ask for more money on this issue. The money will be there.
Hey, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, neither have come to the border yet.
Kamala Harris is a
I mean,
joke.
I'm going to ask you, I mean, Janice, what's behind that? Why won't they do that? Why
Well,
won't
I
they
think-
come down here? I mean,
I don't
and
know if
now
it's a
they
matter
can't
of-
come down. They've kind of dug their heels in.
Yeah, well, I don't know that it's a matter of they won't or can't. I think it's a matter of that, we're 5 months in and there have been a whole lot of other issues that he's been focusing on and a lot of damage that he's had to undo for the last 4 years. But I disagree in saying they won't come or they can't come. I just think it's a matter of their priorities are focused elsewhere right now. And
Well, I haven't
and
been to
not
Europe
making that
either.
trip.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Wait,
mean the issue's not getting attention.
Okay, but
Because
here's
he is giving the issue attention.
not really.
But you can do that without having to go down there.
But I
The
tell you, it's-
reason I'm going to say the reason that neither of them have gone to the border is because of basically the major media blackout, not Fox, on what's really going on at the border. So if they come to the border, the media comes with them and the story starts getting told.
right.
That's the reason. Now, Kamala Harris is busy. She was reading to kids the other day because she's so busy because of all the other critical issues we face. Come on, Janice. I mean, and the comment about her, I mean, she's ridiculous. I don't know.
I think Gary's right. I think it is a deliberate attempt to try to keep the media away from the border. I just don't see how you can spin it any other way. And the thing that I think is fascinating about this is almost all those local officials down there are Democrats, and they are all screaming bloody murder about this. I mean, I would bet, Bob, how many of those sheriffs you talked to were Democrats?
A lot of
90%
them.
of them?
Well, no, because these were sheriffs from all across the state, actually, but the border sheriffs are all but one are Democrats.
I mean, Chewy Hinojosa has been screaming bloody murder about this. He's,
Mhm.
state senator from down there for
know
many
what?
years.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Tomaro.
Well, you talk about the focus on the border and all that, and I get that. But what I'm really, really disturbed about with this legislative session that they just had is education. Because Bill brought up a big point about HISD and other things. What I don't know people are looking at, ignoring, or just don't give a damn, is what has happened to the children, especially the elementary children in this pandemic. Because you have a lot of kids, when you're a parent, look, like I only have 2 children. If this had happened while my children was in school, I would have been at a loss because my children are 6 years apart. And so trying to teach a 2nd grader while I'm trying to teach an 8th grader, while I'm trying to make sure we got food and we got clothes, that's too much. What are we doing to try to get the kids who here, okay, you want to talk about compassion, to get them back on track? Because I'm not seeing it. I was so grateful. I went to the opening of the Children's Museum. It was spectacular. Them kids, those babies were, it was like hugging grandma the first time you got to hug grandma. Their free Thursday night is sold out for the month, for the whole month. It's sold out, and because you have to register. They doing it in time blocks so it won't be overcrowded for safety. But I'm telling you, if we don't look at the kids in America, I don't give a damn what state they're in. Because when school shut down, unless you were private, you kept going. Public schools shut down everywhere. This has impacted everybody. We need to look at taking care of home. I am not seeing that. And we need to do that here, especially in Texas. Our children were already behind. Hell, they off the damn chart now. What are we doing? They should have had some kind of mandatory summer school or something. And I know the teachers are under pressure. I get it. Okay. I'm a former teacher and I taught special ed. So I know that they are, and haven't helped those special ed babies, because you got to stay on top of them on a daily, else they lose what you just gave them. But I'm telling you, nobody is talking about this. And that's a damn crisis. This is a crisis that we need to be dealing with right here.
So out of the state legislature, Senator Larry Taylor out of Friendswood, they report they fully funded Texas schools. They didn't take any money away. Plus they're getting $19 billion in kind of a one-time infusion of federal cash with a lot of discretion for each of the districts to use that money. Some of it is earmarked for special ed, and rightly so, because we've been out of compliance with federal standards for decades. But I mean, there is going to be a bunch of cash tossed at Texas school districts. And I think the legislature gave those districts some discretion of how they use that money in the next biennium.
But that's not the problem.
Whether we see any
that's the problem, Greg. That's the problem. They've given them discretion. I have to agree with Bill. Most of these crooked ass ISDs don't give a damn about the kids. They care about the contracts. They could care less about the kids. I don't want them to give it to them with discretion. It needed to say specifically, this is for third graders, getting them on track. This is specifically for special ed.
For the classroom.
Where we've neglected them for decades. It should have been earmarked. Don't give them no damn discretion, because that means let's get new Hummers. How the hell is that helping kids?
No football stadiums.
No, the school boards are elected by school employees and contractors who want to get jobs from the schools. That's got to be addressed, because people grossly undervote in school board elections. It's the most important election you can vote in, and yet it's the one that gets the least participation from the voting public. We need to quit having these school board elections on independent days and have them when people are voting on other things, so that you can have more participation in the process and dilute the votes of those who benefit from this corrupt process.
Put that on the special session agenda.
Hey, I'm going to get Janice and Tomaro's attention right now with one word: Jumbotron. Jumbotron across the city. What's going on, Janice?
There's a proposal that's working its way through City Hall these days to erect up to 50, I call them Jumbotrons, trash in the sky, TVs on a stick, along our freeways, and use public land to do it. The city, it would be the first time the city has ever partnered. I mean, we're talking partnering, going into business with the billboard industry to allow them to have access to narrow strips of public land along the freeways to put up these huge, brighter than day billboards that we have never seen. And it's important to note that Houston has for 40 years had a ban on the construction of any new billboards, whether they're the traditional kind or these new bright Jumbotron boards. And so there was an RFP issued in December of last year. It was supposed to go to council in April. It has not yet. And we're not real sure when it's going to go, but it's moving its way through City Hall at this time. In return for being able to put these 50 billboards up, one billboard company will win the right to do this, which is also, there's problems associated with that, because you'll have all the other companies then coming forward and challenging that because it's an exclusive arrangement. But in exchange for doing that, they'll pay the city a little bit of money, not much at all, and they will agree to take down 3 boards for every one that they put up. But these are 2-sided digital billboards that are going up. So when you do the math, you're putting up 2, taking down 3. It's really only 1 that's coming down. And in other cities, they've taken, I mean, St. Petersburg, Florida, they brought down 14 for every one of these that went down. So there's room to try and get a better deal.
Just say no.
Tomorrow.
And this is, okay, this has been around for several years. City Council Member Gallegos brought this up because initially they were talking about, I think 5, and we were saying 10. Super Neighborhood Alliance partnered with City of Houston to go after those kiosks. I should say those deaf attractors, because the city had an attention-getting device ordinance that prohibited businesses from doing that because it caused accidents. They modified that ordinance to be able to put that crap on the corners to get their little 50 cents off of that. Now these Megatrons that they're putting up in the sky, and they're creating a monopoly for a company on city money and city property that taxpayers have paid for. This is asinine. This is on our agenda to talk about tomorrow at Super Neighborhood, because people are against it 100%. And let me tell you, the densification at Chapter 42 has allowed the city, people live right next to the freeway off of 610. They live right off of 45. Can you imagine that damn spotlight spaceship landing right in your bedroom window? Okay, I mean, I'm not kidding. This is, okay, look, they have these in Vegas. When you coming down the desert from the airport. Yes,
Vegas
they have
is
them.
fine.
I see nobody living around them. I see no residential community or whatever. They're talking about putting these in the city, okay? So y'all need to pay attention to this.
I'm thinking it's going to look like Blade Runner. Y'all remember the movie Blade Runner?
Yes.
I think the response for this, the city council should vote no. This is just a joke. You know, and this is the priority that we have for the city with runaway crime, right? And flooding issues, and they're worried about putting jumbotrons all over the city. Makes a lot of sense.
I look at the 5 faces here, and every one of you know how to follow the money. Every one of you professionally, or even just by instinct. Bill, who's getting rich here? Somebody going to get rich?
Well, yeah, the companies that are putting up the billboards, I mean, it's not really all that tough to figure out. Yeah, I don't, you know, I'm with Gary. I mean, we have a city that's running several $100 million a year deficits year after year after year. And instead of attacking what really needs to be done to fix the city financially, they keep trying to desperately grab every little piece of revenue that they can. You know, we got a garbage fee. I guarantee you that's coming down the pikes here any day. You know, and instead of going back and addressing, what was the other thing they did? They were putting up advertisements on the sides of the bus stops or something. I mean, it's just one thing after another to try to come up with revenue, instead of going back and saying, okay, why don't we really fix the finances once and for all? And the sad thing about it, none of this is going to make any material difference at the end of the day.
No.
Look, I said this in both my campaigns. I'm going to keep saying it until, you know, people stop listening to me. Unless you get the finances right, nothing else matters. Period. End of story. And the city of Houston refuses to do that. And by the way, Harris County is now headed down exactly the same path. Harris County actually used to have very sound finances. Its net balance, its fund balance went up every year. They're now headed exactly the same direction as the city of Houston is. I mean, I'm just telling you, these two government entities are going to destroy this metropolitan area because of the way they're governing.
And follow up what Bill said on Harris County. That destruction has taken place in the last 3 years since Hidalgo, Ellis, and Adrian Garcia got elected and decided to ignore the traditional fiscal conservatism of the county. That, by the way, Alfranco Lee, big Democrat, was a part of all that, but now it's a whole different world. And by the way, just I want to
Franco Lee is rolling over in his grave right now.
If I could jump in on the billboard thing. Personally, I like the billboards. I wouldn't, but I agree with Tomaro. I wouldn't want one shining in my bedroom window at night. They are extremely bright. I think the city's got no business being involved in this at all, except to say, Yes, you can build it. No, you can't build it. This is the time requirements. If you're going to build it, that it can only display one message for X amount of time. And if it's going to be built on city property, then the city should get revenue off of that. Also, they should be regulating, if you're going to put one up, you can take down 5, 10, whatever the number needs to be if you're looking to beautify the city by removing billboards. But then I'm also going to agree with Bill. I think we got a lot more important things that the city needs to be looking at than electronic billboards.
Greg, just before we go, I want 20 seconds to talk about my outrage of the week. That's all I'm asking for. Otherwise,
hey, everybody, you've got a burning desire. Take it, Gary.
all right, I'll go first. My outrage of the week is the Biden administration in its new budget replaced the word mothers with birthing people. I mean, I guess because if you just refer to mothers, you may offend transgenders who I guess maybe think they can get pregnant. I have no idea. I am appalled. This tells you what the thought of political correctness and woke is doing to this country. Unbelievable.
Well
I'll
said,
tell you
Gary.
my outrage of the week. It was seeing Bill King on a 150-foot yacht in crystal blue water while I was hammering away here in Houston. That's my outrage of the week. Okay.
All right. Before
A dirty
I go,
job. Somebody's
I
got to
wanna
do it.
invite you all- Okay. Please, you all, the Super Neighborhood Alliance is open to the public. We're live on the HTV channel. It's tomorrow at 6:30. Our guest is Public Works Director Carol Haddock. Please feel free to come. One of our gentlemen who runs an HOA where they pay a part of the homeowners' water and stuff with the changes in the new water rates that, I mean, people not saying nothing about. I mean, y'all better watch this. At their HOA, it's $10,000 a year, $10,000 a year minimum increase on it. So I'm telling you that you need to look at this, because in California, their water bill is higher as their utilities. We're going to end up being the same way. So please tune in. It's on HTV. You can go sign in on Facebook. We're on Facebook Live, but you all attend that meeting, because y'all need to be on there and y'all need to be listening and talking about some of these changes. And the director of Public Works is the guest for the evening. So hell,
By the way, talking about voter suppression, there is a charter amendment that was passed by a majority of city voters that said that water rates cannot go up more than the inflation and the population every year. And the city has completely ignored that. They've got this convoluted legal argument that says that because another dissimilar limit was passed at the same election, they don't have to pay attention to this one. And I mean, and which there's Andy Taylor's got that litigation out there. If the city ever loses that litigation, there are probably about 4 or 5 lawsuits out there that if the city loses any one of them, it's going to be certain bankruptcy. About 3 by the fire department and a couple on these revenue limitation issues.
Another outrage.
Hey, before we go, one of the folks on Facebook pointed out during our discussion on the border that Kamala Harris went down to Guatemala to take a look at the root of the problem. I had missed that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'd like to. Kamala Harris is my outrage of the week. You know, when she went to Guatemala, the president of Guatemala was basically laughing at her and her idiotic statements that she was making down there. But she did get to the root of the problem when she went back to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And that's where the root of the problem is. We've seen this migration problem just explode. President Trump's policies reduced illegal border crossings by 95%. And in 6 months, Biden undid all of Trump's policies, exploded this, and now we're on pace at a record of a 20-year high on what's going on with the numbers of people crossing down there. And most of those people are being released. It'll be 2 million people that they catch crossing the border this year. So far this year, there's been another 250,000 that are gotaways, people that they know cross the border and they either didn't have time to get to them or they couldn't find them or those kind of things. 250,000 people with 5 months left to go in the year, fiscal year.
All right, everybody. It's been a great conversation. The good thing is rebuttals will take place in future weeks because none of this stuff is going away.
Unfortunately not.
I appreciate being with 5 smart people on a Sunday morning. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We appreciate being with 6.